Well, 'tis the season, October the 2nd. We picked up the grapes and came right home and started grinding them. Zinfandel and Cabernet, 25 cases of each. A lot of work. But then some people they add a yeast to it, but I didn't. You don't need to because it's a natural yeast that comes on the skins themselves. So it just ferments on its own. So ours is chemical free all the way. But you have to have the yeast for it to ferment. So we do one at a time and they dump it into the big barrels and get ready for fermentation. Good workers. A lot of muscle there. That gets to be heavy after a while. It's called a destemmer, so the stems go one way and all the pulp and everything, the juice goes another way. It's the same principle we have a tomato machine where you make sauce. You grind the same thing, the skins come out one way and the pulp goes the other way. Same principle.
He loved 4th of July. He always had firecrackers, and he'd put them under my mother's chair on the front porch. He was like a kid on 4th of July.
And my dad, that's another thing. My dad, one day we were at a wake, and a friend of ours died, and I read the obituary, and he was about 4 or 5 years younger than my dad. They went to school 4 years. I said, and my dad said, yeah. I says, we went to school together. I said, "Pa, how can you go to school together? He's so much younger than you." He says, well, I had 2 years in the 1st grade, 2 years in the 2nd grade, 2 years in the 3rd grade, and 2 years in the 4th grade. So obviously he went to school with the whole town, And he was ill as a child. And it took him 8 years to go through 4 years of school. But I about fell off this stool then. That was funny. Dead serious. Yeah.
My father was a great guy he loved all the little kids in the neighborhood, snotty nose and all. He'd hug them and kiss them, and a lot of times he'd give them haircuts. But everybody loved him.
Well, my mother was the best cook in the world.
My mom knew how to cook, that's for sure. You go over there and it looked like she didn't have anything, and you have a gourmet meal, nothing flat.
My mother was a fantastic cook. I mean, you could compare her to any of the chefs that you see on the Food Network today, probably.
Her best dishes were everything. Whatever she fixed was just unbelievable. She loved to cook. She was a great cook.
But the garden was, our life. Couldn't wait for the tomatoes to get ripe. We'd go out there and pick one with a salt shaker and sit on that step that we'd go into the back of the house and eat tomatoes. And then the zucchini, my mother had 365 ways to cook zucchini. It was so plentiful. But everything she did was great. She was a fantastic cook.
I have to tell you this, my kids, my husband's Irish and English, but they consider themselves Italian.
What will we pass on as a heritage? Just love everybody. That's it, and stay close.
I'm very proud to be an Italian because I have seen how Italian families, how close they are together and how helpful they are to one another. I've tried to be helpful myself to even non-Italians. It's just something, the Italian community just seems to love life and love people, no matter, whether they're Italian or black or Hispanic, or they just like being nice to people. So that makes me proud.
As far as being proud to be an Italian, I wouldn't change for the way I was raised for all the tea in China. I've got friends that are millionaires, you know, through being as old as I am. And those guys, you know, they had cars, they had vacations, they had this and that, and we didn't have any of that stuff, and I wouldn't change it. I'm happy. I've learned a lot.